on forever. I'm left standing here, I got nothing to say. All is silent within my dream. 1,000 true loves will live and die, but a dream lives on forever. The days and the years will go streaking by, but the time is stopped in my dream. We all have our everyday hopes and fears, and you'll find no exception in me. But that doesn't get me through a sea of tears over life's biggest tragedy. You're so long ago and so far away, but my dream lives on forever. I guess I believe that I'll see you one day, for without it there is no dream. I loved you, you'll never know till you join me within my dream. And how much I loved you, you'll never know till you join me within my dream. Thank you.
Todd Rundgren and Utopia on stage at the Agora Ballroom in Cleveland. There's more to come right after these.
Okay, I actually didn't know that the clip I picked was of a live performance at the Agora Ballroom, which used to be a pretty iconic music hall here where I live. I live in Cleveland, you know, whatever. In any case, I wrote this article. You should know, those of you that have been following the channel probably do know, I did serve in the Israeli army. I don't consider myself a philosophical Zionist. I don't think that it's a real political philosophy in any case. I think it's kind of it's a fictional, it doesn't really have much to it. So to be a Zionist, essentially you have to acknowledge that the Jewish people deserve a homeland of their own. But now that they have one, what the hell does that even mean? Well, in the eyes of some people, it's to defend that right. And in my opinion, the reality is that a lot of the people who consider themselves Zionists don't really have a coherent philosophy at all. It's kind of a joke, and I've kind of renounced it, and I've gotten backlash from people who are out and out Zionists. And then there's people who will never believe that you have your own independent thought. They'll just continue to call you one. They'll call you a Zio or whatever. And so this is kind of a message to the people. They call themselves the pro-Israel Democrat. They call themselves basically the sane Democrat. And I actually did have, let me switch this one up. 1 second. So this was the thumbnail that I created for this. That's the responsible wing of the Democratic Party at the moment. So they really do have this ridiculous belief that because they're like the older, more mature wing of the party, that people are eventually going to come to their senses and reject the opposite side, the pro-Palestine side, that is steadily gaining support within the Democratic Party. And my argument is to them that they've failed already in doing that within the party. Nobody really has any, nobody wants to be lectured to by a bunch of old lobbyists and corporate lawyers and influential donors and things like that. That was the flaw of the Democratic Party in 2016. That's why, by the way, progressives have been succeeding in a number of races around the country. They haven't been succeeding to the degree that they would hope. The establishment wing of the party still has a solid boot on the throat of progressives across most of the party. But in terms of public image, they're really suffering. There's more progressives than ever that are considering not voting. There's more progressives than ever that are rejecting the message of the Democratic Party. They're going a little further left. And, of course, I don't consider myself one of them. But I know plenty of people that are. And some of their concerns are understandable. The Democratic Party has betrayed the conservationist voter, I guess you could also make the case the climate change voter. I'm not really one of these climate change people, but they've really screwed the pooch on that. And Arjun says a pro-Israel Zionist left is not only a mouthful but also an oxymoron. Well, to talk to some of these people, you think that they're still living in 1965 or something. Now, I'll explain what the pro-Zionist left is in a nutshell. Basically, a lot of the people who settled the the British Mandate of Palestine, or even before that, the Ottoman Empire area that was eventually called Palestine, were of the socialist Zionist groups, the Poale Zion and things like that. And they kind of built a lot of the infrastructure in the early country, and they had a number of communes and everything. And if you think about it, a lot of these socialist people that think that they're so progressive and everything, that was really the model that many of them were pursuing. In many cases, these communes, these worker-owned communes and farmer co-ops, were basically, those are the model for a number of socialist movements around the world, because it wasn't necessarily the most totalitarian form of government. Although my mom lived in one of them, and she said it sucked. It was basically, the people there were assholes. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. But it's not as if equality was really what you were getting there. You were just basically told, yeah, just fucking work and shut the fuck up. And stop complaining when you want to put your own music on, or when you want to see your own programs, or when you just don't, when you want a different job on the kibbutz or whatever. I would never, ever, ever, now that I know, now that I lived there and I know people who lived on those, I would never really pursue that type of life. Even I actually lived on one for a year, but by then they'd already privatized most of their holdings. So that is a model on which the Zionist left once was. Now, a lot of people will look at the video and they'll be like, Zionist left, where's all of the human sacrifice or whatever? No, that's not what I'm talking about. In fact, I don't really think that exists. That must be you projecting something that you believe onto something that I observe. So, this video might not be for you. And if you want to leave a very debasing comment towards me after the video uploads, you're free to do that. I almost never censor my comments. I usually actually approve even spam comments that are, they're called spam comments. Real spam comments I wouldn't approve. If you're basically advertising, your moose deodorant or whatever the hell it is that you sell. But back to the topic, a lot of these people still believe in the vision of a progressive Zionist enterprise. And in my opinion, it's just as delusional as any of the other iterations of that philosophy. Look, I believe in the Jewish religion. Among the tenets of it is that you believe that there's a holy land, which is Israel. I also think that these Muslims that live in the land of Israel, for lack of a better arrangement, we're not getting rid of them. And that there's got to be a little belief that the country isn't just for one type of people. Well, the Jews. It has to at least provide a basic human rights for all citizens, whether they're Jewish or Ukrainian or Arab or in some cases other ethnic groups or something. There's, for example, there's Circassians. Those are these Muslims that moved there under the Turks. They're very secular, by the way. They almost, the ones that I've met, which are very few, don't really practice Islam at all. They kind of like LARP at it. but that's not the point. So Zionism, I think, has really evaporated as a real political philosophy. But within politics in the United States, there does seem to be this obsession with it, especially among the Christian right. But there's also kind of this obsession with it among its opponents on the left, and also opponents on kind of the racial right. And they look at Zionism as this disease. Now, I would say that Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming along, there's these efforts to portray her as this fire-breathing person who will basically bring jihad on the United States if she's elected to Congress. I think that's a gross exaggeration. She's obviously not sympathetic to Israel, but people are making it seem, there's this huge defensive behavior, this outpouring of defensive behavior on the part of left-wing liberal Jews who do support Israel, saying, well, that's not really the face of the Democratic Party. Well, what they usually try to do is they'll deflect, and this is the article. It's in the description, by the way. And they'll try to say, this is a friend of mine. His name's Fred Maroon. He said something, and he's a blogger also on the same platform, the Times of Israel. I rarely post on here because, let's be honest, most of my content is mostly South America oriented. But in any case, Fred Maroon is kind of a liberal Zionist, Christian, Lebanese, Arab. There's a mouthful. And he's very pro-Israel, and he also he was on the show, I think, in February, and he happens to think that it's wrong for Jewish Zionists to walk away from the Democratic Party. Now, my personal belief is if you're really a Zionist, you should probably move to Israel and stop just mimicking behavior and not actually following through with it. You should really practice what you're talking about. But that's not really. I mean, I get it that the general meaning is not taken to be that. The general meaning is that you would be supporting the state of Israel, which I guess is an alternate definition. It's pretty common. And then he says those who use the walkaway tag should realize they're doing no favors to Israel and they're putting their partisanship above Zionism. Zionists who are, and that's actually a contradiction of terms because they're rejecting partisanship. If they're leaving the party, then they're rejecting partisanship. Zionists who are Democrats just stay in the Democratic Party and fight tooth and nail for Israel within that party. I read this. I was really like, what the hell is he talking about? And this is a person I do respect. I think he's a nice person. I think he's well-meaning. But it's like almost like pulling teeth sometimes, pulling my teeth, I'm saying, reading this stuff. And he's saying abandoning the party to anti-Semites is a terribly bad idea. So if you're an American Democrat Zionist, don't even think about walking away. That's my emphasis added. Stay and fight for your values. If you must vote Republican sometimes, just do it. But don't abandon the Democratic Party to the anti-Semitic sharks. Do it for Israel, not for me. And this is really what I'm saying this. The Democratic Party is an institutional failure for anybody who's a participant in it, except for those people who are direct financial beneficiaries of it. I've had a lot of people who I've discussed things with. Some of them do watch my channel or they've participated in it. No censorship. No. What the hell are you talking about? Yes, everybody's been talking about Crazy Eyes Cortez. Yeah, I just realized that my real name or my real name is on the article. What do you want me to do? So, yeah, in any case, but yeah, I've kind of covered my ass on a number of issues. So hopefully not too much will result from it. But you do have to go out there at a certain point. You can't just hide in a fucking alley and say, oh, nobody knows who the hell I am. Well, this issue is important for me because I would say I see some of these people like Lennon McCarthy, who has nothing to do with Zionism, but he left the Democratic Party because it basically lied to him over a number of issues that were important for him, and he's completely changed his philosophy, which is fine. I probably would in his place. I went through that process. I put my own walk away video together. Had nothing to do with 2016. It had to do with Al Gore. So there's a lot of people who were betrayed. There's this Brandon Straka who's producing a lot of these videos and is the leader of this walkaway movement. Those are people that's what liberalism is. Those are people that are a little more into open discussion and things like that. They're not necessarily pro-religion, but they're not against religion. The unclear middle that is really that's a part of the American public that all of these politicians are trying to earn their votes. So then people try to make the argument that there's these racists within the GOP. But if you really look at what's been going on, these hardcore racists don't really get anywhere. By the way, there was that GOP legislator from Georgia who said the N-word on what's his name show, Sacha Baron Cohen's show, immediately forced to resign. Immediately. I think it was not even a day. I didn't even get to cover it, and I'm not going to cover it because it isn't that important. Like a state legislator, what do I care? But in any case, there's three candidates that really stand out that are Republican racists that, would probably, they're all kind of anti-Semitic anyway. Arthur Jones, who is a neo-Nazi, who was nominated in Illinois' 3rd District, but there's no chance of him winning because the last Republican to win there was in 1975. I think he lost the seat in 1975. So there hasn't been a Republican serving in that district since 1975. And Dan Lipinski, who's the Democrat, is going to win. He's been endorsed by Republicans around the country because he's kind of a more centrist, even conservative Democrat. And I think he's anti-abortion, in fact. So, yeah, there's no danger of this neo-Nazi actually being elected to Congress anyway. There was just nobody else running in that district as a Republican because no Republicans ever won there in recent memory. Then in the 1st House district, trying to succeed Paul Ryan is Paul Nealon, who's basically lost his entire audience because he's fought with, he has a new audience, but he's lost a lot of his support because he's fought with virtually everyone and anyone, including, bizarrely, other alt-right figures like Jared Taylor, who he started calling a Jew. So he's not going to, I have serious doubts he's going to be nominated. And in any case, the Democrats have a very strong candidate in that district anyway, named Randy Bryce, who I think he's a problem for a different reason. He's more of a union hardcore voting. Yeah, he's a kind of a real organized labor guy. Yeah, I'm actually going to delete Arjun's comment there. So, yeah, that's not going to be there. I'm going to have to actually take this down. Thanks, Arjun. Then you have Patrick Little, of course, who's his fans have been kind of giving me shit comments all the time on the one video I made about him calling into Mad Dodge Productions and losing his shit after 7 minutes. Now, people make a big deal out of him, and they still talk about him, even though he lost his nomination and came in 12th place. So, I don't see what's the importance of Patrick Little. The man had virtually no chance of earning anything, earning any support. What's going on here? But you do have, here, there's even this Jacob Wohl, who's a 20-year-old guy who's a Jewish Trump supporter, and there's a major contingent of Trump supporters among the Jewish right. So you contrast that with what's happening in the Democratic Party. Now, one person said, I didn't go far enough in attacking the Democrats and this, one of these people, I emailed it to somebody who I thought might want to share it, and they're like, well, you don't really make the real moral argument that Ocasio-Cortez and Keith Ellison and all those people are anti-Semitic. Look, I'm not trying to make any moral arguments here. I'm not even trying to tell people not to vote. I mean, if you want to vote for Keith Ellison, go the fuck ahead. The guy's an idiot, but you can vote for him. I'm not in Minnesota, by the way. I don't care. You can have him as your shitty attorney general. But just examine this, okay? There's a video here of Tom Perez saying this.
Now, something else happened last week. There was a primary in several states, your state, home state of Maryland, and also up in New York, where the fourth most powerful Democrat in the United States Congress, Congressman Joe Crowley, was knocked out by a young woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 28 years old, never ran for office before. Big progressive, calls herself a Democratic socialist, actually, like Bernie Sanders did. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter. And in Maryland, Ben Jealous, another strong progressive, wins the Democratic nomination for governor. What's this tell you about where the Democratic Party is going today?
Well, my daughters, I have three kids, two of whom are daughters. One just graduated college, one is in college, and they were both...
Wait, if you have three kids and two of them are daughters, what's the third kid? Because I think that there could be 33 different possibilities for that, right? Because two of them are daughters, that would imply that they're female, although we can't be sure. The third kid could be any of 33 other possibilities, right? Just throwing it in there.
Texting me about their excitement over Alexandria because she represents the future of our party. She ran a spirited campaign. I have great respect for Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley is a good Democrat. He was one of the sponsors of the Medicare for All bill. He's fought the good fight.
Yeah, so he says she's the future of the party. And, you have Representative Keith Ellison, and I've talked enough about him with the Farrakhan feminism, which we'll revisit one day. It's just, we can just go down the rabbit hole on there, and on that note, and we're going a little late anyway. And he was, Alan Dershowitz, I'll never tire of repeating this story, though, threatened during the DNC chair race that if Keith Ellison was elected chairman of the DNC, he would leave the Democratic Party and start support and basically declare himself an independent. And then he didn't win the chair race, but he did end up, I believe, he is the deputy chair. They created a special position for him just as a consolation prize. And Alan Dershowitz didn't do shit about it because he's just an empty. Everything is just empty threats with him. It just doesn't mean anything. He's good at talking and he's very poor at taking any action. He's a lawyer. Then there's Leslie Coburn. So by the way, Keith Ellison, a huge supporter of Louis Farrakhan for the majority of his early career. Now again, I say this: you can vote for him, you can support Farrakhan. It's not my decision to make. I think that Farrakhan is out of his mind, but he at least has more intelligence than Keith Ellison, who lies to the public about his ties to Farrakhan, even though it's available, it's documented since his college days at the University of Minnesota and law school and everything. It's not like he can actually hide it. People have to stop with the bullshit, okay? If we know something about you and it's not possible for people to for you to cover it up because it's all over the internet and it's sourced and everything, then just own it and shut the fuck up already. That's my message to Keith Ellison and the other fake, moderate Democrats or whatever. Keith Ellison is a fraud. He supported Bernie Sanders. He is a huge supporter of this type of nonsense. And I'm tired of taking this crap from people who say, "Oh, you should let it go. He left the Nation of Islam." No, he lied about leaving the Nation of Islam because he was a member, and now he denies he ever was one. Then there's Leslie Coburn, who has this book called "The Dangerous Liaison: The Inside Story of the CIA in Israel," who is a longtime anti-Israel activist and journalist. And again, you can, I mean, I'm not telling you what to think. If you're not for Israel, you can read her book. You can like her shows and whatever. I think I included, well, I didn't include in here, but there is a video of her on C-SPAN for over an hour talking about her book and everything. This is obviously a person who's not sympathetic to the cause of any of these people. Okay, I'm just saying. You don't have to like what I'm saying. You can support her. I'm just making the point that she doesn't like you guys. She's not so what's the issue with her? She's a nominee for the 10th House of Representatives district in the 10th Congressional District of Virginia. So yes, that is the Democratic Party of today. That is who they are. Then there's Ilhan Omar, a Somali American, who I think she said that Israel is like a cancer or something, some sort of one of those common remarks. Then there is Sex and the City actress Cynthia Nixon running as a Democrat to unseat two-term incumbent Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is a past supporter of BDS since 2010. BDS is the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement. And is likely to force a deep division within the Jewish community of New York between supporters of either side. Then there's Amar Campa-Najjar, who is half Palestinian and half Mexican. And he is a member of the Justice Democrats, which is, Kyle Kulinski's former organization with Cenk Uygur. And, I'll say this. He did renounce his family's history in the PLO, and he said, I'm for the two-state solution, and I'm for negotiations or whatever. Arjun Sinha says, I think the Democratic establishment is afraid of going more left. I think they understand the fact that they're in danger of going out of the mainstream altogether. No, I don't think, they're afraid of it, but they can't stop it, so they're going along with it. And in Tom Perez's case, he's said, and maybe he's lying, but he's said that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the future of the party. Then there's Abdul Rahman Mohammed Abdul El Sayed, who's running for governor of Michigan, also a very big supporter of a lot of the same causes as Cynthia Nixon. There's a selection of Congressional Black Caucus members who have been, they've just been tied to Louis Farrakhan. And then there's a Women's March, which is doing the big vote-getting effort out in New York, or all over the country, by the way. All over the country, they're getting this get out the vote effort. And these people are just winning primary after primary. To make it worse for those of you that happen to be pro-Israel, Jewish, liberal Democrats or something, if you still exist, there's a lot of liberal or progressive left-wing Jewish groups that are very anti-Israel, including If Not Now and Jewish Voice for Peace. And there's an active contingent of them in the media. So on July 12th, New York Magazine had one of their Jewish writers wrote this article called The Jewish Revolt, kind of lionizing these disruptions caused by members of If Not Now at the birthright events. Let me see if I can open this image. I think I see something that's a little interesting here. Okay, no, it's the same thing. But yeah, these are people who, they go to their go around and they virtue signal because they're Jewish that they want Palestinians to have a new, they basically want the Palestinians to take over what is Israel right now. And though they do have a significant footprint among the Jewish left, and that's the young generation. So the older generation who are Jewish Zionists and happen to be on the left are dying. They're dying off. They're 60 and 70 years old. They're not significant people. They don't have their hand on the pulse or their finger on the pulse. You can't have your whole hand on the pulse. Then it just gets really faint and the person dies. Just passes out there. But there's a huge contingent of Jewish left-wing leaders who are basically as opposed to Israel as you can get. They're probably more opposed to Israel than a lot of the other pro-Palestine activists that there are. Sinna says, I saw the video of the American Jewish girls walking off the Birthright tour bus. That's called being a traitor to their faith. Yeah, that's one way to put it. That's the way I might put it, in fact, too. I don't usually talk about that, but I did talk about it with a friend a few weeks ago. And those people are basically spitting in their own well. They're spitting in the well that they drank from. And, the same can be said, I guess, if you make the argument of some of these Palestinians who go over to the Israeli side. If you want to make that argument, you can. I happen to think people have the freedom of choice. I also think that choice that these women are making is really retarded. And it shows just how suicidal our communities are, the Jewish communities of the West, that they would take league with these, just people that hate you. So what the hell? Was watching Reason Magazine's YouTube channel. What are they talking about? That's interesting. I'm gonna cut out soon, but in any case, I had this argument later with a couple people who were these establishment type Jewish liberals. One of them ended up exposing himself as a former Democratic politician from southern New Jersey. So that would be like the backwater, shitty area near Philadelphia of what's already the shittiest state in the country. A state where basically, people throw their medical waste. So he was trying to lecture me, oh, you don't know anything about the Democratic Party. And I was telling him, oh, I don't. Name one thing in this article that you disagree, that didn't happen or was untrue. Couldn't do it. The guy's retarded. Gerke says, never heard of the books you mentioned. I was referring to the early 80s rock band. Huh. I made it. Can you start over, please? No, man, it's really late. Come on, dude. Just watch it from the beginning. I know you're probably trolling me, Pinochet, because of what I did with the shelf yesterday, which I can still do. So you read this article. It talks all about the issues here. The issue is, and I say all the time, people can make their own choices. They can decide who to support. But the fact is that they cannot deny that Bernie Sanders was the quality candidate in 2016 because he believed in something. And Hillary Clinton was not the quality candidate for the simple reason that she did not believe in something. She believed in her own personal gain. That's what she believed in. She even believed in herself. Do you really think that she was standing there considering the actual needs of the country when she was running for president? It doesn't seem that way. It seems like Sanders was at least making an effort to do it, and she wasn't. And then they raked him over the coals for not appearing at AIPAC. AIPAC, which, by the way, is an organization I don't really support. It was an interview with Charles Murray. That's cool. I like Charles Murray. That's the bell curve guy, right? So I just want to say this. Bernie Sanders was very successful in 2016, was not ultimately successful in winning the presidency, but he was very successful because he did have a vision. He did have at least a platform for a lot of things. You might not, and a lot of these people don't like him because of his pro-Israel, his anti-Israel statements on certain occasions. But most Americans don't care about that. Most Americans don't care either way about Israel or Palestine. They care about getting a paycheck. They care about keeping their bodies of water clean. They care about illegal immigration. They care about having the health care. Dude, What the fuck, Arjun? Stop doing that. God damn it. So you have a lot of these people. A lot of these people are really delusional. They think that the real issue is Israel. It's not. A lot of these people that are making all of these presumptions that they're the real face of the Democratic Party, they should realize that many Democrats in the early 2000s were against the Iraq War. A lot of them were skeptical of the 9/11 attacks as well, skeptical of some of the things that were the antecedents of it. So they've lost track of that, and they've completely jumped the shark and gone over to the other end and said, well, we believe in everything the intelligence community says whatsoever. And in any case, they're completely tone deaf. They don't realize what the fucking party is doing now. Let me see this. Yeah, Larry, can you email that to me instead? Because I'm not going to remember that. And I discussed, of course, my experience. I talked to a number of Bernie Sanders people, and there's a misconception that a lot of these people are kind of the OcasioCortez type, these entitled, young, college-educated losers that took something like whatever it is, basket weaving or gender studies or, Yeah, I already deleted your message, Arjun, so you don't have to retract it. In any case, the issue is that these Democrats are basically ignoring their own compatriots within the party. They basically don't even listen to them. When I talk to those people from San Diego, or I talk to other people who are Bernie supporters, even Bernie supporters from here, you have to understand that a number of them were attracted to Bernie Sanders due to a dissatisfaction with both parties, and some of the same reasons that they were dissatisfied are the same ones that are the reasons that we attack. Those of us that support Rand Paul or Jim Jordan or Thomas Massey or before the election, Gary Johnson, who turned out to have been a fraud. But there were reasons a lot of people ended up supporting third-party candidates, independents, libertarians, the Green Party, stuff like that. These people do not care. These people who still consider themselves the democratic, left-wing Zionist people, they're delusional. They think that they can hold back the tide of history, when in reality they've already lost. Tom Perez has embraced Ocasio-Cortez. Cory Booker and all these other Senate Democrats, they're going to embrace Ocasio-Cortez. They're not going to embrace her all the way, but they're going to bring her into the fold. And that's entryism. And if Leslie Coburn gets into Congress, it says Cockburn, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Coburn because they wouldn't want to be called Cockburn. But if she gets into Congress, yes, she would be a very significant just shot of cold water at the Democratic Zionist people, or the people who consider themselves pro-Israel Democrats, would have to really face reality and say, look, we did lose. I hope they would. They're still delusional 2 years later. They think that a lot of these people are the Russiagate people, the ones who believe Rachel Maddow. They'll watch MSNBC. They'll watch the New York Times, and then they'll complain about unfair media bias against Israel. But then they believe, this is how much of a cognitive dissonance they have. They believe that the entire media is lying about Israel, which a lot of them are, and then they'll shift topics and they'll be like, oh, well, of course, the New York Times is saying that Paul Manafort's guilt also establishes Donald Trump's guilt. You can't simultaneously distrust the same publication on one topic and then blindly trust them on a different topic. It doesn't make any sense. Larry Gerke says, I'd love to embrace Alexandria OcasioCortez. She's a cutie pie. That's very nice, but I will have to end it. So thanks, guys. I do have to turn in, and I have to go eat something. But have a great night. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment when it uploads. And by the way, this live chat, I believe, is all 24/7. I don't think I even have to set a time, so you're free to continue chatting on it when I'm gone. Of course, all the smack talk will be dealt with if I see it. I'll just like insult you guys if you insult me, because that's the name of the game. But yeah, Pinochet, have a good night. Arjun, Gerke, who else was here? I think that's it. Have a good night.